Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Dan Pugh.
And I'm Shauna Harrison. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Not everything can be perfect at all times.
Citation needed.
That's not just one of my personal mantras. It's a fact of life. Sometimes it's the situation or the resources available to us that are less refined, and sometimes it's the people. But most people have a sense for when someone has far more to offer than what is obvious at first glance. You may have experienced this yourself. You look at someone and see a lot of potential and think, this one is a diamond in the rough.
I love this phrase.
Me too. I'm excited. The key words in our phrase are diamond and rough.
It's almost the only words.
Yeah. There are two phrases or terms that were contemporaries, meaning they existed at the same time. Both are a piece of the phrase, diamond in the rough. According to Oxford English Dictionary, the term rough diamond means, quote, a diamond in its natural state, before it is cut and polished. In the figurative form, a person having high intrinsic worth and good character, but lacking in manners, education, or refinement, end quote.
All right. It just needs polish, I guess,
Yeah,
would be the thing.
yeah.
It needs to be cleaned up and polished and smooth out the rough edges. And now he can have the manners and the education and we can refine him. But as it is, poor Aladdin, he does not have it yet.
I was wondering how long it would take you to say that.
Yeah, literally the moment I saw that this episode was about Diamond in the Rough, I thought...
You didn't want to wait for me to bring it up? Or
I'm sure you will. I trust that you will. But yes, no, the moment I saw the episode was Diamond in the Rough, I thought, oh, Aladdin, yeah, okay.
Well, here's an example from the play Wife of Moneth, which was published in the 1625 work Comedies and Tragedies by Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher. Quote, she is very honest and will be hard to cut as a rough diamond, end quote.
All right.
Another early example of this is in John Dryden's work Fables, Ancient and Modern, published in 1700. The following excerpt comes from his preface to the Fables. Quote, Chaucer, I confess, is a rough diamond and must first be polished ere he shines, end quote.
I wonder if he means Chaucer as a person or Chaucer's work.
Yeah, well, he goes on to provide a little bit more detail on his meaning. Quote, I deny not likewise that living in our early days of poetry, he writes not always of a piece, but sometimes mingles trivial things with those of greater moment. Sometimes also, though not often, he runs riot like Ovid, and knows not when he has said enough, end quote.
I see.
Basically what he was saying is that he's writing these epic stories and then he mixes in something that just is irrelevant.
Yeah, that's why Chaucer needed an editor.
Probably, but also that's something that a lot of people talk about today is that those smaller pieces of a story make them feel more in it because that's real. Those little aspects of things make it feel like real life. So, I don't know. Everybody's got a different style,
Well, I also think it matters whether or not you're writing for the people of today or you're writing for the people of tomorrow. Because if you're writing for the people of today, you can trim the things that everyone today understands. But if you're writing for future generations as well or exclusively, then you need to include those smaller trivial things because the reader of the future will not necessarily have that context.
Right. Yeah.
And probably why Chaucer's work has survived as long as it has.
Some staying power, yeah,
Yes.
a little bit.
Exactly.
Also very funny guy.
I would not call Chaucer super accessible, but he is far more accessible than some of the others of his time.
Fair, yeah. Okay, so that gets us the beginnings of rough diamond. And now we'll move to the second phrase. According to Oxford English Dictionary, in the rough means, quote, in a rough, imperfect, or unfinished state, especially of a precious stone, before cutting and polishing, frequently figurative and in figurative contexts, end quote.
So wait, in the rough doesn't have to be used with diamond? You could be like ruby in the rough or emerald in the rough or, I don't know, wheat in the rough?
Yeah, so the phrase in the rough was in use at least as early as the mid-1600s. Here's an example from the 1688 work by Randall Holm titled the Academy of Armory, or a storehouse of armory and blazon. Quote, flax all one way is flax in the rough, undressed, end quote.
Huh.
So this excerpt refers to flax fibers that have not yet been fully processed or prepared. Flax in the rough means the flax is still in its raw, unrefined state, and undressed indicates that the fibers haven't been cleaned or separated for spinning. Essentially, it describes flax that is still in its natural, coarse form before any further refinement or treatment.
Okay, well then I was today years old when I found out that you could use in the rough with other things besides a diamond. And we have.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a few hundred years, but hey.
Yes, but I'm bringing it back.
Bring it back, baby. It's difficult to pin down exactly when these two phrases solidified into one because they were used with generally the same meaning and interchangeably. However, here's one early usage of the full phrase in the novel Theodora by Dorothea Dubois. Quote, you presented me with a diamond in the rough, said in reference to a young lady, but I think it as well polished a diamond as I ever saw, end quote.
I am viewing this particular quote with the lens of today's life, and I don't know if that is commenting on her intrinsic abilities or her external features.
Well, probably a combination because it would take into account definitely like mannerisms would be an important aspect of society, not just appearance, right?
Sure.
But yeah, so essentially, it's like you said this was a diamond in the rough, but what I'm seeing is like the whole package.
Polished.
It's already, So this excerpt helps verify that both pieces of the phrase were relatively common with people by this time frame. The phrase is used as a contrast to describe the woman, and it's not explained further. So it's like a very figurative usage here. Next, we're looking at a few items from the 1800s. The first is from the story titled A Passing Shadow of Life, published in the Staunton Spectator, April 3rd, 1845, out of Staunton, Virginia. Quote, but he came not. Beneath that coarse gown there beat a woman's bosom. In the recesses of that heart there was the diamond in the rough of pure female love, generous, long-suffering, forgiving, and undying. End quote. There's more to the story about the love that she was looking for in his travels, and we're going to read a little bit more during our behind the scenes, which is available to patrons every Friday on our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
That will be fun for you all because I famously struggle to deal with serious concepts without making jokes.
That's okay. Gotta lighten the mood.
No, sometimes we don't have to lighten the mood, and that is what gets me in trouble on occasion.
Fair. Just a few years later, the phrase is found in the Hillsdale Whig Standard, April 11th, 1848 edition, out of Hillsdale, Michigan. This is from the piece The Gentleman, an extract from Bishop Doane's address at Burlington College. Quote, when you have found a man, you have not far to go to find a gentleman. You cannot make a gold ring out of brass. You cannot change a Cape May crystal to a diamond. You cannot make a gentleman till you have first a man. To be a gentleman, it will not be sufficient to have had a grandfather. To be a gentleman does not depend upon the tailor or the toiler. Blood will degenerate. Good clothes are not good habits. The Prince Lee Boo concludes that the hog in England was the only gentleman, as being the only things that did not labor. A gentleman is just a gentle man, no more, no less, a diamond polished that was first a diamond in the rough. End quote. The next item is found in The Prison Mirror out of Stillwater, Minnesota, dated July 6, 1893. This comes from a piece titled As It Appears to Me. Quote, in order to fully understand and appreciate the Greeks, we must examine and judge them by the standard of their own times. If they were far from perfect, can we not say the same of ourselves of today, who have received the light and experiences of centuries? To me, Greece appears as a diamond in the rough. Necessarily, there was much about her that was dress, but the real gem was there. End quote.
That's a really good assessment of what we would look at as ancient Greece.
I agree. And kind of speaks to similar to what you were saying before, that you got to look at things through the lens of the time that they existed.
Right.
So,
Well, it can be helpful anyway.
yeah, yeah. So if you're like me, the name of the paper maybe gave you some pause.
The prison mirror.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're taking a mandatory detour, aka bunny trail, to read a little bit about the paper here. The Prison Mirror, at various times entitled just The Mirror, is the newspaper of the Minnesota Correctional Facility, Stillwater, also known as the Stillwater State Prison, and claims to be the longest continuously published prison newspaper in the country. It was initially published weekly, but is currently published monthly, and is written by and for people incarcerated at the prison. The first issue was released on August 10th, 1887, with the motto, God helps those who help themselves. A few issues later, the motto changed to, It is never too late to mend. The newspaper was intended to shed a ray of light upon the lives of those behind the bars to the outside world, and it aimed to be self sustaining in terms of funding, declaring, the entire profits of the Mirror, above the running expenses, will be devoted solely to the purchase of books and periodicals for the prison library.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
I found that very fascinating,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, good for them,
Yeah.
probably.
So it's like started by these three brothers who'd all been incarcerated together.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, on the whole, it sounds like it's a with a really brief look at it and no deep dives. Then this sounds cool. I think I like it.
I think I like it.
But I have been burned so many times by things where I'm like, oh, yeah, he's a good dude. Whoops. Or, oh, wow, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Turns out it was not.
Just a few years later, we find the phrase in the Mena Weekly Star out of Mena, Arkansas. The May 26, 1897 edition featured the article, A Diamond in the Rough, but Labor and Capital Will Make Mena Shine as a Metropolis. Quote, Mena is a diamond in the rough, nestling on the foothills of Rich Mountain, whose rock-rubbed sides and timbered crest rises 1,400 feet above and to the north. As a protecting shield from northern blizzards and western cyclones, she rests in peace and security. End quote. Just got to get there, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the thriving metropolis, I think, is probably, it's apparently about 5,000 people now. 5 to 6,000 now. I mean, potentially it was a metropolis at one point when the railroad went through, but
Well,
I
this was
doubt
like
that.
it trying to get development to happen there, really. So this was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying labor and capital did not, in fact, make Mena shine as a metropolis, is all I'm adding.
Right. Okay, we've described people's appearance and behavior, locations, and destinations. Now we're going to look at the phrase used to describe individuals as assets.
Oh, okay. Cool.
This excerpt comes from the article Infant Class Hope of Every Team in Big League This Year by Billy Evans, published in the January 17th, 1912 edition of the Daybook out of Chicago, Illinois. Quote, Washington has a diamond in the rough in Carl Cashin. This 6-footer has the speed of Johnson, a good curve, and a peculiar jerky delivery that has the batter wondering when he intends to deliver the ball. End quote. This article talked about several players, very much used diamond in the rough more than once, but also to describe just the benefits that they would bring to the teams, and not at all about the people. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. This is, I assume, about baseball and not cricket, right?
Yes, baseball.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
because in baseball, I don't know much about cricket, so I can't comment there. But baseball, famously, the infield is called a diamond because it is in the shape of a diamond from home to first to second to third and back to home.
Right.
So the idea of a diamond can play multiple ways. So it does not surprise me that we see some early baseball commentators using the phrase because it definitely
because it's a clever,
it has a
clever
yeah, it
play
has
on
a
words. Yeah.
yeah, definitely multiple uses when it comes to baseball.
Right.
And baseball has a long history of using weird and funny and punny phrases to describe things.
Absolutely. Naturally, the phrase made it to the ads. We find it in the May 12th, 1950 edition of the Evening Star out of Washington, D.C., in an ad for the clothier Conrad's. Quote, ours alone, black linen, black diamond in the rough. Lottie designs our 10-carat summer ensemble, a gem of fluid line and cool wrinkle-resistant pure linen. End quote. Some more little play on words there with diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more item I want to look at, and then we'll move to our modern uses. This is a movie ad found in the March 5th, 1959 edition of the Montgomery County Sentinel out of Maryland, USA. Quote, Anthony Quinn and Sophia Loren are billed together in The Black Orchid, the story of a gangster's widow and her problem child. Quinn is a lovable diamond in the rough, and Miss Loren makes an enticing widow. End quote.
Oh, my.
An enticing widow.
Okay.
That was the entire thing. I didn't even, there was no more.
Yes.
Gangster's widow and her problem child. We have several modern uses to cover, and we'll get to those right after we say thank you to our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by our amazing patrons on Patreon. And the cool thing about Patreon is it is 100% free to join the Bunny Trails community. We have new things every weekday on the feeds. On Mondays, we have a conversation about what movies, shows, books, podcasts, and whatever else everyone is enjoying. Tuesdays see early access to the week's podcast. Wednesdays have all the links, books, songs, and other content mentioned in the week's episode. Thursday has patrons-only polls. And Fridays are our lightly edited, behind-the-scenes video featuring all the cut content, goofs, and bonus facts you could imagine.
We've got some other pretty cool stuff too, like original digital artwork once a month made by me, and direct access to talk with us. No algorithms getting in the way of what we see or don't see. Plus, you can get awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe does every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsig Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon.
That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
This phrase appears in an animated classic that Dan has already mentioned.
And yep.
I was going to say you've been waiting to say it, but no.
Nope. I could not wait.
So our excerpt comes from the 1992 Disney movie Aladdin. After Jafar, the bad guy, finds a genie's lamp in the desert, he attempts to use a random thief to steal the hordes of treasure buried beneath the sand. His plan doesn't go so well. The entrance to the Cave of Wonders resembles a massive, mystical tiger with glowing eyes and a deep, booming voice. It serves as the guardian of the treasures inside, and he warns Jafar about who is allowed to enter, saying, quote, only one may enter here, one whose worth lies far within, a diamond in the rough, end quote. I can't make my voice deep and booming, so you just get what you get.
It's fine. Yeah, I this is my favorite animated movie. I don't know. It's up in the air between this and The Emperor's New Groove, but
I was thinking of that one.
Yeah, but this was my, I was a young teenager when this came out, so I really enjoyed this movie. He's basically like touch nothing but the lamp, Right. And then the spoiler alert, the monkey touches something that's not the lamp. Boo! And then hilarity ensues.
Yeah, and a magic carpet ride.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Steppenwolf would be proud.
Diamond in the Rough is a spray paint on truck door artwork signed and dated Banksy 10 on the right edge. Here's a little bit about the 2010 piece from the website Banksy Explained. Quote, one of the most enigmatic figures in contemporary art, Banksy is a highly vocal critic of society, bad actors of capitalism, and the place of graffiti within a greater art historical conversation. Diamond in the Rough speaks to the artist's beginnings in the urban environment and is a deft combination of ready-made surfaces and Banksy's instantly recognizable style. The composition's ingenuity lies both in the artist's seemingly simple choice of subject matter and its ability to start a conversation about the art form at large. Taking a steel and glass truck door as his canvas, Banksy builds out Diamond in the Rough by employing the extant tags and painted markings as the backdrop for his composition. Rendered in the artist's signature stencil mode, a young girl sits at the bottom of the frame. Her right hand extends outward with the palm up to cradle a glowing gem with shine lines emanating on all sides that are reminiscent of the playful compositions of Keith Haring. A direct predecessor, Haring's work also graced the public transit system decades prior and prefigured some of Banksy's own compositions like Choose Your Weapon 2010, which features an homage to the late artist's barking dog motif. End quote.
Banksy is certainly one of those artists that some people love, some people hate, but has definitely taken a a spot in the minds of people well beyond the art world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of people recognize that name. Diamond in the Rough is a song by Airborne, released on their 2010 album Black Dog Barking. Here are some of the lyrics. Quote, I had $1 in my pocket and dirt on my hands. She was a rich man's daughter who didn't give a damn. She had all the boys talkin' with her fancy cat walkin', but it was me who took her home and gave her bed a good rockin'. Oh yeah. End quote.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
Oh my.
I don't know. I don't know where you thought that was going. Diamond in the Rough is an artwork created by Yunko Abe of the United States. The original piece was created in 2018. Here's what the artist had to say about the piece. Quote, in a time where chaos and unrest is quickly brewing within the country, we see vines of empathy, resilience, and unity tying us all together. Like a rose out of concrete, we grow stronger, pushing past the walls that confine us, a diamond out of the rough. This seemed reflective to me of the journey that hip hop as a genre and as a culture had to travel through to get to where it is today, using its strength and community to uplift each other and itself within an industry which initially sought its downfall. The adversity had only made it stronger. Combining my inspirations, I created a portrait of Rihanna, adorned with elegant diamonds and gems, within a background that depicts a gritty, chaotic scene from Mad Max, to show that beauty can grow out of any environment. Diamond in the rough, but diamonds are forever. End quote.
Nice.
Diamond in the Rough is book 1 of 3 of the Diamond Trilogy by Skye Warren, published in 2020. Here's a teaser from the author's website. Quote, I'm stepping off a 9-hour flight when it happens. A white van, a dark hood, every woman's worst nightmare. Now I'm trapped in an abandoned church. The man who took me says I won't be hurt. The man in the cell next to me says that's a lie. I'll fight with every ounce of strength, but there are secrets in these walls. I'll need every single one of them to survive. Diamond in the Rough is masterfully written, sinfully sexy, and utterly addictive. Skye Warren proves why she is the queen of dark and delicious romance. Gianna Darling, USA Today bestselling author. Diamond in the Rough is a new dark romance from New York Times bestselling author Skye Warren. Finding yourself has never been so dangerous. End quote. There you go. I'm not sure what this story is about because I couldn't quite tell. I mean, obviously she gets kidnapped, but whew. Diamond in the Rough is a song from Charlie Crockett's 2024 album, $10 Cowboy. Here are some of the lyrics. Quote, Diamond in the rough, I know you've had it tough. A woman sure gets judged at a man's game. Empire may rule the world. I'm only living for you, girl. And I can see you as you twirl. Diamond in the rough. End quote.
I assume this is some sort of a country album saying $10 Cowboy, but maybe not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. DITR Jewelry, stands for Diamond in the Rough Jewelry, shares a brief description on their page titled The Value of Rough Diamonds. There's an image with 4 stones with different colors and cuts labeled The Art of Rough. Here is a little from the article. Quote, rough diamonds are revered for their pure, untouched state and natural beauty. Their value lies both in their beauty and raw material, and many do not know that actually it is the cost of the rough diamond that determines the price of a polished diamond. End quote.
I'm fairly certain that that's that is a intentional misunderstanding of the cartel behind the diamond industry in the United States.
Okay.
Actually, world. I should say world. I said
Yeah.
United States, but no. That one I can quite comfortably say is worldwide.
Um. Uh huh. We have no comments on cartels. Not a sponsor.
Oh no. Yeah, great. No, now the Diamond Cartel is gonna like hack into our stuff. I better go make sure to change all our passwords.
Jeez. The company follows this concept into the design of their pieces. Quote, Diamond in the Rough Jewelry is the world's leading natural rough diamond jewelry brand. We are inspired by the unique design of each rough diamond. We redefine perceptions of diamond jewelry by showcasing the inherent beauty of these gemstones in their untouched form. End quote. So their jewelry is definitely unique and it's lovely, but they don't do a lot of cutting into shapes. They kind of work with the natural.
Whatever's there.
Yeah.
Well, that makes
So
sense.
it's kind of neat and still sparkly. So
it's polished but not cut.
yeah.
Okay.
In my opinion, diamond in the rough is one of the most versatile phrases. It can apply to anything or anyone. And it's positive, focused on the potential and growth within something that might seem less desirable. I love what this phrase embodies because truly, we're all a work in progress. We're constantly growing, learning, and improving every day of our lives. Perhaps we could all be better encouragers and supporters of one another if, instead of focusing on each other's flaws, we saw each other as diamonds in the rough. That's about all we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, reach out to us on Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
It is poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons, which of Disney's classic Seven Dwarfs best fits with you? It seems Bashful and Sneezy won the day, with Happy and Sleepy not too far behind. Jan says, quote, to the annoyance of my family, I sneeze 5 to 7 times at one go. I've got to pick Sneezy, end quote.
That sounds awful, Jan.
Yeah, I feel bad for you, Jan, because Shauna and I have a mutual friend, and she is like that too. So whenever she sneezes, it's always like 3, 4, 5 times, and you can only say "bless you" so often or "salute" or whatever to someone so often before it's like I think maybe I need to get an exorcist.
Yeah, and then it's like, are you done?
Right? Yeah, and it does, and I'm sure as Jan, we're preaching to the choir here with Jan, or preaching to the converted, as that phrase is known in the UK. Yeah, it's probably always having to do that. And you're like, I have no control over it. I can't help it.
It just doesn't.
Stop making fun of me. I can't help it. Well, Emily shares, quote, I went with Sneezy because allergies. My other choice was Happy because I feel like I'm a positive, optimistic person, end quote. Yeah, that's totally fair. I like that.
Lately, I've been mostly like sleepy, and I'm sneezy whenever there's a cat nearby. But I'm going with bashful. I'm not sure if I'm truly bashful, but his demeanor seems to fit me.
I see. Well, this one was difficult for me because I have elements of all of Disney's classic Seven Dwarfs except Bashful. I am a jovial person, so I think I'll go with Happy, but Sneezy and Sleepy apply often as well, and I fear Dopey might be in the mix for me more often than I wish to admit. Well, as a reminder, our silly polls mean absolutely nothing and are not scientifically valid. But patrons of all levels, including our free tiers, can take part. Head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod to take this week's poll. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week. Until then, remember, words belong to their users.